up, guys, and welcome to another video. In today's video, we are going to be covering the Frost Mage PvE guide. Now, right now in the beta, guys, Frost is topping the meters. Nobody can come close to a Frost Mage right now. It is disgusting. So, let's go over exactly why and what's going on here. First off, let's start off with the talents. Now, our level 15 row of talents, I don't think it's any question whatsoever. I think we're taking ice flows here. Unless there's a patchwork style fight with a huge damage coming in, then we might consider some other things. But for right now, ice flows is just the way to go. It just makes the most sense. Okay, so let's definitely stick with that. For level 30, again, this is our damage mitigation. You can take a passive if you want to, but I really like Ice Barrier. I think having that on-demand absorb is just better. I really do. I really think it's your own oh shit button, as well as, you know, like a hearth lock or a lock hearth or a lock, you know, cookie, or anything like that. I just really think that it's a lot better to keep that on-demand absorb. So I like to stick with that. But again, we'll see if the numbers get adjusted on the other two as things progress towards the live servers. Now, in the next row of talents, we're gonna go over PvP stuff. No, we're not. Ring of Frost, who cares? Done. 45, complete. Alright, now, for the next row of talents, Cauterize, Greater Invis, Cold Snap. Now, this is where some, you know, this is where a lot of debate comes in, and this may change based on the fight, too, but for right now, for normal dungeons, I like Cauterize, or I like Cold Snap. Greater Invis, I just really don't, as long as you have a decent tank, Greater Invis just doesn't really become that good, especially in these dungeons, in these opening normal mode bosses. I really don't think you're going to need it. I think that you'll get much more benefit out of things like Cold Snap, having that second block or that big heal, and then as well as Cauterize, just having the ability to, if I die, I can get healed up and I can block off the debuff. It's really up to you, but I normally just run with Cauterize. I don't even think about this talent unless I'm in a raid fight, and it might change slightly. Okay? But other than that, for my normal, everyday encounters, I'm sticking with Cauterize. It's just the way to go. Now, for the next row. I played around with all three of these talents. Unstable Magic is a passive, so every time you cast Frostbolt, it works. Now, a lot of people are saying that Frostbomb was very, very finicky the way that it worked, and it needed a buff of some kind. It might get one, but I actually found that the way that it synergizes with the Frost spec, it's actually really nice. So I actually stuck with Frostbomb, because mainly I didn't need a freeze, because the other one replaces your Frost Nova, and I just like to have Frost Nova. I don't need it to do damage and control stuff. The problem with that is it's annoying if you're tanking. If you're tanking a group of adds, and the Frost Mage does his little ability, you're pissed off, because now everything that you wanted to have coming to you is now stopped. You can lose aggro. It's just a pain in the dick. So just go with Frostbomb. Just don't make it complicated. Like, let's be honest here. Frostbomb's just easier. And it gives you something to cast. Yes, it does have a small cast time, but it's not bad. Keeping it up, it's not as quick off as it was last time, so it actually has like a timer on it, which is a little bit nice. And I'll go into that a little bit more in detail in a minute. Now, as we go into our level 90 talents, again, I'm sticking with Incanter's Flow here. The reason being is because I like to not have to worry about it. Rune of Power, again, requires you to not only cast something on the ground, but also to stay in that area, making it a bit of a pain in the butt. Now, if the fight doesn't require a lot of movement, then yes, that consistent 15% will probably end up being better than that 5 to 25 varying ratio every 10 seconds. And then let's be honest, mirror images, I've really tested this out a lot, guys. I like to have the consistent spell damage other than that one cooldown and then having my overall damage be a bit lower. I like the consistency of having a little bit higher percentage of spell power. That's just me. And I think that as the tier goes on, unless those scale with your spell power, and they scale heavy, I really think they need a buff right now. They're just not viable. I haven't seen anybody really taking them because you just get that more consistent damage benefit. And besides that, guys, with that extra spell power that you're getting from either Rune of Power or from Incanter's Flow, which I like, when there's big burst phases, a lot of times, you know, having that extra percentage gets you those net higher AoE numbers. So that's the big thing. Frost is a very bursty class. So again, Rune of Power and Incanter's Flow are where I would go. I tend to stick with Incanter's Flow because it's a set it and forget it talent. I don't have to deal with it after that. Now, as far as level 100s go, again, I'm going to say this about Prismatic Crystal. Blizzard, fix Prismatic Crystal. It's terrible. Nobody's taking it. Nobody's taking it for one main reason. It's not on the ground long enough. It's not cool, and the cooldown on it is way too long. You need to fix the cooldown issue or the time that it's up issue. One of those needs to be addressed before any mage is going to take it. There. I said it for all the mages. Now you can thank me. Now, let's look at the other ones. I don't like the extent of your Icy Veins. I don't like the way that works. What I actually like is Comet. And the reason I like Comet is because it's a splash damage ability. And it's an instant cast spell. So the nice thing is it's got a short cooldown, it's instant cast, you can cast it while you're on the move, and it's got splash damage. So if there's adds, it comes out on top almost every time. There's no time where this spell's not going to come out on top if you're doing it right with a bunch of adds. People will say that Prismatic Crystal is very, very good for this. The problem with Frost is you really have to line up all those cooldowns, then pop your crystal, and then make sure that they're all right there. If something happens with positioning or anything goes wrong, it's a waste of a talent. So you really have to have, again, a consistent strategy and know where to use the other two. So when you're first getting into attempts and first really going in and really discovering attempts on these brand new raid bosses, as we're in a brand new spec and a brand new expansion, I would stick with Comet. It gives you something to cast on the move so you don't have to waste an Ice Flows proc. And it does a ton of great things besides just coming down and looking badass as shit. The graphic is awesome. It's probably one of the coolest looking spells in the game. I would take it just because it looks cool, but that's me, and I'm vain. So let's get into glyphs. Glyphs, splitting ice is pretty much mandatory for anything that's not just a single target patchwork burn fight. Any kind of trash mobs or any AoE packs, you're going to get a ton of damage out of that. I like Cone of Cold, especially for AoE things. Obviously for obvious reasons. And then, you know, after that, it's really up to you. I enjoy having my water elemental be able to cast on the move. That's just something I prefer. So again, you can play around with them. The big thing with glyphs, guys, is none of them are really mandatory. There's not anything that's really going to, you know, change your gameplay significantly. Now with minor glyphs, again, I actually do like minor glyphs for Frost. Momentum, of course, I always take because I think that that's just key, and I'm so used to it as a mage. If they took it away, I wouldn't know what to do. So there's that, and then I like to have a big, badass-looking water elemental, so I get the one that makes him bigger and the one that changes what he looks like. That's what I did. A lot of people don't like the way that it looks, so they keep it smaller, but I tend to, if I don't have my pet frame and I'm not focusing on my pet frame, I always know that there's this big blob next to me. My pet's out, he didn't die. So that's the big thing. And that's the bigger it is, the more I see it, the less time it's going to be down. If for some odd reason it goes down, that's honestly why I use it, guys. So those are just my minor glyph choices. It's up to you what you want to use. Now, as far as rotation goes, let's get into the meat of this class here. Now, tradition tells us that Frost is very burst heavy, but the nice thing is with the change to Mastery with the Icicles, and the fact that we now have 3 stacks of Fingers of Frost, it's actually really, really cool, and we can actually keep some really good, consistent, high-end burst damage because we don't want to burn through all of our stacks of Fingers of Frost. The reason being is every time we cast our Fingers of Frost, then our Icicles go out. So we want a Fingers of Frost, Frostbolt back to 5, Fingers of Frost, Frostbolt back to 5. The only time we would be burning a Fingers of Frost stack is if we're at 3, because we don't want to miss a potential Fingers of Frost proc because it's a free cast, it's instant, we don't have any cast time, and it hits like a truck. Okay, so that would be the only time we would be casting it before that. Now, Brain Freeze, again, fire off those Brain Freeze procs. They did fix it so you don't have a cast time anymore, which makes it awesome. Okay, Brain Freeze needs to be an instant cast spell. It just does. And they fixed it, it seemed like, at least in the footage that you're seeing, so I was very, very happy with that. Now, what you do want to understand here is that with, so for your burst, single target, you're popping all your cooldowns, getting them going, and then you're just going to Frostbolt, 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 Frostbolt. As soon as you get all your Icicles, start sending out the Mastery out. So you're going to fire Fingers of Frost proc. Make sure you're not capped. Fire off any Brain Freeze procs. Make sure you're not capped. You know, just keep firing those off, fill them with Frostbolt, and you should be able to keep those procs going for at least 10, 15, 20 seconds of cast time, maybe even 30 if you get real lucky with those Fingers of Frost procs, and you can really pump out some insane, insane damage. Now, let's go into Cleave. Obviously, Glyph of Splitting Ice, so key for Cleave because it hits the other target as well. So for our Cleave, again, we have Frozen Orb. So not only do we have Frozen Orb, we're going to get that up. Not only do we have our our Frost Orb Bomb up, or our Frost Bomb up, which also is going to help us, because every time we fire off our Ice Lance, when it was procced, we're going to get that splash damage from Frost Bomb as well, so that's a bonus. So we have plenty of things that we can do with that, and that's going to lead straight in to just cleaving off, and then you're just going to stay on the target with your Frost Bomb on it. Just focus that target, make sure the ads are together, and really start lighting them up. Now, AoE is where it's going to get a little bit tricky. AoE, in a perfect world, is going to be this. It's going to be about 5 ads. We're going to send out our Frost Orb. We're going to make sure we're using Comet on cooldown. Again, same thing with Cleave. Comet's on cooldown, but especially on AoE, that Comet does a ton of splash damage, and it looks really cool. Make sure we're using our Pet's Freeze ability. Get as many Fingers of Frost procs as we can, and here, and we're firing out our Frozen Orb and our Frost Bomb. So now we are just literally pummeling every single proc we get into that enemy, making sure that we're bursting down everything, getting that Frost Bomb to explode every time we hit that Ice Lance button. So we're just getting this huge amount of AoE. And on top of that, we also have Cone of Cold, which if you glyph, does a ton of damage. So we've got so many spells to just burst down mobs and control them, because not only are they going to be slowed from Cone of Cold, but we have our Pet's Freeze ability, and then that's just, I mean, we're just naturally in our rotation going to slow down and keep everything grouped up into that, as Preach would call it, the Ball of Death, where everything's just going to be sitting there and we can just unload, and the rest of the raid or the rest of the dungeon can just unload and unleash hell on all these mobs, and that's the most important part. So Frost AoE damage is absolutely insane, his single target damage is absolutely insane, and his cleave damage is absolutely insane. Right now, guys, Frost is in a great spot. If patches were to go live tomorrow and we were going to be able to start raiding the new content tomorrow, I'd be playing Frost right now. It's topping the meters. It handles every situation beautifully. The only reason that it didn't get enough love last expansion, honestly, was because it didn't scale. But we're at the beginning of expansion. At the beginning of last expansion, there was a lot of people playing Frost. I know I played it for a little while until I got some gear, and then they broke Arcane, but we're not going to go into that, Blizzard. We'll leave that alone. So I'm telling you guys, at the beginning of this expansion, Frost is going to be real good. Where we're really going to see if Blizzard fix this spec or not is how well it scales and how much they have to nerf it in PvP and how that coincides to PvE. That's really the big things with being a Frost Mage, is typically you're a PvP only, because you're so strong in PvP that every time they nerf it in PvE, it has adverse effects in PvE. So just keep that in mind, guys, that right now it looks really good. Hopefully it'll stay this way going live. Hope you guys enjoyed this guide. Please make sure you share it with your friends. Give it a like or a sub if you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Let me know if you have any other tips or tricks in the comments as well. And as always, we'll see you in the next one.